Welcome to Mindful Moments. Nourish your mind on the go. This audio uses AI narration to present our original book analysis. Today we're going deep into The Disengaged Teen by Jenny Anderson and Rebecca Winthrop. Think of this as a shortcut to understanding what's really important in the book, so you can use these ideas in your own life.
Yeah, we're going to explore the reasons why so many teenagers are struggling to find their footing in school. The authors break this down into how this struggle can look like outright resistance, quiet apathy, or even burnout from overachievement.
It's like trying to fit square pegs into round holes.
Right.
This book argues that the way we've traditionally approached education might not be working for a lot of kids.
Yeah, and they back this up with some compelling evidence. They point to falling PIAS scores, those international student assessments, as a sign that something's off. But it's not just about declining grades, it's about a deeper issue, student disengagement.
Makes sense. It's not just about how well kids do on tests, but how connected they feel to what they're learning.
And speaking of connection, the book dives into 3 different modes of disengagement: resistor, passenger, and achiever.
The resistor is the student who's outwardly defiant, skipping class, maybe even getting into trouble. The book shares the story of Samir, a student who felt so overwhelmed and unsupported that he completely stopped going to school.
And then the passenger, the student who's going through the motions but isn't really invested, like Mateo, who figured out how to get top marks without actually doing the work. Clever, but is he really learning?
And finally, there's the achiever mode. This is the student who's driven by performance, often stressed and anxious, but not necessarily happy or fulfilled. The book uses Vanessa as an example, a star athlete who came to realize she actually hated the sport she was excelling in.
Interesting, because these aren't fixed personality traits. Kids can shift between them. And I think the key is understanding the why behind each mode. So why are so many teens feeling disconnected from school? Well, one of the most fascinating parts of the book is its exploration of learning environments. The authors take us back to ancient Greece, where dialogue and active learning were championed by thinkers like Socrates.
Right.
And then they contrast that with the monastic tradition of the Middle Ages, where rote memorization and simply transmitting knowledge became the focus.
It's like they're tracing the roots of our current education system and questioning if it's still relevant today.
The authors suggest that our system might still be too heavily influenced by that monastic model, which could explain why so many students aren't connecting with it. But they offer some hope, too, pointing to a concept called the zone of proximal development as a key to unlocking engagement.
So what exactly is the zone of proximal development?
It's often called the ZPD, and it basically describes the sweet spot where learning happens most effectively. It's that space where kids are challenged just enough, not too easy, not too hard, to really stretch their abilities.
And that ties in beautifully with the idea of neurodiversity.
Right.
The book argues that a one-size-fits-all approach to education just doesn't work, especially for students who are on the autism spectrum or have ADHD.
Think of Emily, a student who really struggled in a traditional classroom. It wasn't until she was diagnosed with autism that her parents and teachers were able to understand how to support her learning within her unique ZPD. And it goes beyond the classroom, too. The book makes a really compelling point about the power of parents in shaping a child's learning journey.
You mean beyond just reminding them to do their homework?
Exactly. They highlight research showing that what they call the alterable curriculum of the home, the things we talk about and do with our kids, can have twice the impact as socioeconomic status.
Good reminder that our influence goes beyond just making sure they get good grades. We have a huge role to play in nurturing their curiosity and love of learning. So how can parents use these insights to help their teens thrive?
That's where the book gets really practical. It introduces this idea of explorer mode, a state where teens are genuinely engaged in learning, both in school and outside of it. And a key to unlocking this explorer mode, they argue, is giving kids a sense of choice.
I've definitely seen that with my own kids. Even giving them small choices seems to make a big difference in their motivation.
The book talks about a study where teachers simply asked, "Might you consider trying this?" and saw a big increase in student effort. Makes you realize how much even subtle shifts in our language can impact a teen's willingness to engage.
Like we're giving them ownership over their learning. And that ties in with another concept the book explores, wise feedback. What I found helpful is that it's not about lowering expectations. It's about offering support in a way that makes kids feel respected, even when their work isn't perfect.
It resonates with the whole growth mindset idea, doesn't it? This belief that intelligence isn't fixed, but can be developed through effort and learning from mistakes. And speaking of effort, The book also stresses the importance of nurturing passions and interests outside of school, whether it's sports, music, building things, whatever lights them up.
I'm reminded of Thomas, a kid who struggled with traditional school subjects, but absolutely thrived in sports because it allowed him to tap into that explorer mode. He was taking initiative, learning from mistakes, even developing leadership skills, all through something he was passionate about. Now we can't talk about teens and learning without addressing the elephant in the room, technology.
Right, and the book doesn't shy away from it. It acknowledges that technology is a part of our kids' lives, and lecturing them about it isn't going to be very effective. Instead, it advocates for understanding the opportunity costs of excessive screen time.
Meaning how much screen time might be displacing other important activities, like face-to-face interactions, physical activity, or even just time for quiet reflection.
Exactly. But it's not all doom and gloom. The book highlights the potential of what they call pro-social gaming, showing how video games can actually be used to teach valuable social and emotional skills.
Like that example of Susan Rivers, a mom who was initially concerned about her son's gaming habits, but then discovered how games could actually be used to foster collaboration and problem solving. So with all this amazing information, what are some concrete steps parents can take? What can we actually do differently starting today?
Well, one simple but powerful tip is to ditch that generic "how was your day" question. The book suggests trying more engaging conversation starters to really get a sense of what's going on in your teen's world.
Like what?
Instead of just asking about their day, you could try taking a quick look at their schedule before dinner and asking specific questions about their classes, or you could try using thinking routines to help them reflect on their learning process.
And it's not just about what we say, it's about what we model.
Absolutely. Avoiding phrases like, "I'm not a math person," can help our kids develop a growth mindset and believe in their own potential.
This reminds me of Tyra James, a math teacher, who observed that parents' self-limiting beliefs about certain subjects could unintentionally hold their kids back. It's like we're passing on those limiting beliefs.
And finally, the book emphasizes the importance of mindfulness and stress reduction techniques to help teens cope with the pressure cooker environment of school.
That's so important. We often think of self-care as something for adults, but it's a vital skill for teens to learn as well.
Exactly. The book shares the story of Olivia, a teen who found a sense of calm through meditation and even created her own daily reflection practice to manage her stress.
It's a powerful reminder that even small steps towards self-care can make a big difference. Stay tuned as we dive into even more practical strategies for supporting your teen's engagement in Part 2.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Disengaged Teen. Before we move on, I want to emphasize that this book isn't just about helping teens succeed in school.
It's about equipping them with the skills they need to thrive in life.
Right.
Exactly. The authors argue that we're living in the age of agency, where success depends on being adaptable, resilient, and able to navigate a world that's constantly changing.
And they connect that to the idea of belonging uncertainty, which they say is especially prevalent among teens in that achiever mode we discussed earlier.
Think back to Vanessa, the star athlete who felt like she had to hide parts of herself to fit in. This raises an important question for us as parents.
How can we create a home environment that fosters a sense of belonging and allows teens to feel seen and valued for who they truly are?
The book suggests a shift in our language. Instead of labeling our teens, which can make them feel judged and misunderstood, they encourage us to foster reflection.
So instead of saying, "You're so lazy," we might ask, "What was it about that assignment that made you feel stuck?"
Right. It's about moving away from judgment and toward curiosity, helping teens understand their own learning process, rather than just focusing on the end result. And that ties into the idea of encouraging them to ask for help when they need it, which can be tough for some teens, especially those who are used to succeeding on their own.
The book is the example of Isabel, whose teacher intentionally pushed her beyond her comfort zone to help her develop resilience. It highlights that struggle isn't always a bad thing.
It's actually an essential part of learning and growth, but it's crucial for them to know they're not alone in that struggle, that they have a support system, parents, teachers, mentors, who are there to help them navigate those challenges.
Speaking of mentors, the book shares the inspiring story of Tevin, a young man whose passion for design was ignited through an apprenticeship. It illustrates the power of connecting teens' interests to real-world experiences.
Whether it's through internships, volunteer work, or even just conversations with adults in different fields, it's all about expanding their horizons and helping them see the possibilities beyond the classroom.
And sometimes, The most powerful thing we can do is simply listen, without judgment. The book introduces the concept of emotion coaching, where we, as parents, validate our teens' feelings rather than dismissing them.
That reminds me of Francisco, a teen who was upset about something. That seemed minor to his mom. Her initial reaction was to downplay his feelings, which only led to more frustration.
It's a common trap, but the book encourages us to resist that urge and instead acknowledge and validate our teens' emotional experiences, even if those emotions seem irrational or out of proportion to us.
It's about helping them develop emotional literacy, which is just as important as academic intelligence in navigating the complexities of life. But let's be honest, one area where emotions often run high is homework. How does the book address that perennial struggle?
Well, instead of nagging, the author suggests focusing on helping teens develop effective learning strategies. They talk about using invitational language instead of giving direct orders.
Can you give me an example?
Instead of saying, go do your homework, might you consider working on your history project for 20 minutes before dinner?
It's such a subtle shift, but I can see how it would make a difference in a teen's sense of autonomy and motivation.
And beyond just getting the homework done, the book emphasizes the importance of helping teens reflect on their learning process.
So asking questions like, what strategy worked well for you on that math test? Or what would you do differently next time?
Exactly. It's about developing those metacognitive skills, which are essential for becoming independent learners. This connects back to the idea of productive struggle that we talked about earlier. Remember the story about Gareth Southgate?
The England soccer coach, who helped his team overcome their penalty kick curse by taking a metacognitive approach to practice.
It's a powerful reminder that even seemingly insurmountable challenges can be overcome with the right mindset and strategies. And it's a message that can resonate deeply with teens who might be feeling discouraged or overwhelmed by their schoolwork.
Now I want to circle back to that resistor mode we discussed earlier. The book dives deeper into the psychology behind resistance, highlighting the concept of learned helplessness.
That's where teens feel like they have no control over their situation, leading to a sense of apathy or even despair.
Like Samir, who felt so overwhelmed by academic pressure that he simply withdrew from school altogether.
The book emphasizes the importance of recognizing the signs of learned helplessness early on and intervening with support and encouragement.
And it's not just about addressing the academic challenges, it's about helping them develop a sense of agency and self-efficacy, that belief that they have the power to shape their own lives.
One of the tools the book suggests for this is the concept of future possible selves. It involves encouraging teens to imagine themselves in different roles or careers and identify the steps they need to take to get there.
They cite a study where low-income 8th graders who participated in a future possible selves intervention showed significant improvements in their academic performance and sense of purpose.
It's a powerful reminder that even teens who are struggling can envision a brighter future for themselves with the right support and guidance.
And for those who might be struggling to identify their strengths and interests, the book introduces something called the Holland Codes.
It's a framework that connects personality types to different career paths. It can be a great starting point for conversations about potential career options and encouraging teens to explore different possibilities.
And the book reminds us that strengths can be found in unexpected places, even in activities that might seem frivolous or unproductive on the surface.
Like gaming, for example. They highlight the potential of pro-social gaming to develop valuable skills like collaboration, problem solving, and even empathy.
It's a reminder that we shouldn't underestimate the power of play and how seemingly unproductive activities can be valuable learning experiences.
And speaking of learning experiences, the book takes us inside a classroom where students are using a tool called the continuum of engagement to reflect on their own learning process.
Tell me more about that.
It's a visual representation of different levels of engagement, from passive participation to active exploration. It's a great tool for promoting self-awareness and encouraging teens to take ownership of their learning.
It sounds like it could be really helpful in shifting their mindset from I have to do this to I want to learn this.
Exactly. It reinforces that engagement isn't a fixed state, but a spectrum we can move along with effort and intention.
So as we wrap up part 2 of this deep dive into the Disengaged Teen, what are some of the most important takeaways you hope our listeners will remember?
For me, it's the importance of recognizing and validating our teens' emotional experiences. It's so easy to dismiss their feelings as teenage drama, but their emotions are real and valid, and they need our support in navigating them.
I completely agree, and I think the book's emphasis on the power of relationships between parents and teens, teachers and students, mentors and mentees, is crucial for creating a supportive and engaging learning environment. It's not just about academics. It's about building those connections that foster growth and well-being.
Absolutely. And while this has been a great overview, to really dive deep and apply these ideas, you'll want to check out the full book.
Yes, we highly encourage you to read The Disengaged Teen by Jenny Anderson and Rebecca Winthrop. You can find a purchase link in the show notes.
And stay tuned for part 3, where we'll explore the author's call to action for transforming education in the age of agency. Don't miss it.
Welcome back to our deep dive into The Disengaged Teen. So far, we've unpacked the crisis of disengagement, explored the factors that contribute to it, and discovered strategies for fostering a more engaging learning environment for the teens in our lives.
Now it's time to explore the author's vision for transforming education in the age of agency. They challenge us to move beyond the traditional compliance-driven model of education and embrace a more learner-centered approach.
One that empowers students to take ownership of their learning, explore their passions, and develop the skills they need to thrive in a world that's changing faster than ever.
It requires a mindset shift, not just for educators, but for us as parents as well. We need to move away from a narrow focus on grades and test scores, and instead prioritize the development of essential skills like critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, and communication.
It's like that powerful quote from the book that warns we're in danger of educating second-class robots instead of first-class humans. It reminds us that we need to prepare our kids for more than just the workforce.
We need to help them become engaged, adaptable, and fulfilled individuals who can navigate the complexities of the 21st century.
And the good news is there are already people and organizations out there leading the way in this transformation. The book highlights examples like Big Picture Learning, which emphasizes real-world experiences and mentorship, and Summit Public Schools, which has developed a personalized learning platform that empowers students to set their own goals and manage their learning journey.
These are just 2 examples, but they show what's possible when we rethink education and make it more relevant and engaging for today's learners.
What's exciting is that we as parents can be a driving force in this movement. We can advocate for change in our own communities, support organizations that are innovating in education, and, most importantly, model a love of learning for our own children.
It's about creating a culture of curiosity, exploration, and growth, both inside and outside the classroom. One that values lifelong learning and encourages kids to become active agents in their own education.
So as we bring this deep dive into The Disengaged Teen to a close, what are some of the most important takeaways you hope our listeners will carry with them?
For me, it's the understanding that disengagement isn't a character flaw or a sign of laziness. It's often a symptom of a system that isn't meeting the needs of all learners. And there are things we can do, both as parents and as a society, to create a more engaging and empowering learning environment for all kids.
That's such an important point. And I'm also struck by the book's emphasis on the power of relationships in fostering engagement, the connections we build with our teens, the relationships they form with their teachers and mentors. These are the foundations of a thriving learning experience.
Absolutely. And I hope this deep dive has given you valuable insights and practical strategies to help the teens in your life navigate the challenges of adolescence and become the confident, capable individuals they're meant to be.
If this conversation has resonated with you and you're ready to dive deeper into these ideas, we highly encourage you to check out the full book, The Disengaged Teen by Jenny Anderson and Rebecca Winthrop. You can find a purchase link in the show notes.
And if you've enjoyed this deep dive, we'd love for you to subscribe to Mindful Moments. For more bite-sized insights from the world of books, we're constantly exploring new ideas and sharing practical strategies to help you navigate the challenges of modern life and unlock your full potential.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. We'll see you next time on Mindful Moments.